And again, the wedding covenant is something that is not very well understood by most. Jason and I did a teaching on this a while back. This is not going to be a short teaching by any means. But we'll do it in parts and sections as we were doing it prior with other teachings. Yeah, and again, we're going to get to the conspiracy stuff. I don't necessarily want to do that on Shabbat. We can still do stuff on Vimeo. We can do teachings and going more into depth where we can talk about things that are happening. I want that to be more of like maybe a Sunday type thing or a during the week type thing or something of that nature. But again, my main goal is to get these teachings out there and get them posted. I know we've gone through this before, but it's something that needs to be gone through over and over, just like the basic principles and oracles of Yahweh. The wedding covenant is not understood by most, like I said before. There's very few people that actually understand what a covenant is and how a priesthood works and all these different things. And again, we have teachers on here that are saying that it's only about the 10 Commandments and eating clean and what happened at Horeb, completely forgetting about what happened on Mount Sinai. All of these things are things that we're going to cover and go through. But this is not a new teaching. This is something I said as before. We've gone through this many times. But as people are starting to wake up, it's important for us to cover these things. For the people that are just coming to the knowledge of they shouldn't be in these churches and these buildings, and they should be learning from Yahweh. And so again, it's just my goal to try to reach those people that need that extra help to understand the things that have taken some of us many, many years to learn and figure out. And now that we've got all of this knowledge and understanding, we've put it together in a way to where we can share it and people can learn it much more quickly and start to understand it. So that way you're not just reading the scripture and trying to memorize things. You're understanding the stories that are in this book and understanding what our forefathers did wrong and how we can live it out and not make the same mistakes that they made in the past, right? We have an entire, I don't want to say book because these are scrolls, right? And this, when we talk about certain things like the Bible, for instance, it's not called the Bible. That is a word that comes from paganism. It is by Baal, right? Balaam. The same thing with the gospel and all of this other stuff. These words, these English words, as was mentioned in, I believe it was Ecclesiasticus, that the meaning of these words don't carry the same power as they do in the original language. So for us here in the West that are English speaking, again, when you see the differences in the texts of South Africa and their scriptures, there's a huge difference, right? There's a huge difference between the way things are worded and the way that, depending on where you're from and what language you speak and the knowledge that you have on these things, it starts to become more and more apparent. For instance, the word or the term or title God, that comes from Gad Rael, right? God is not our Father's name. And again, our Father's name is written in the Torah. It is the Torah. His name is the Torah. Remember, the Messiah said he came in his Father's name. And what did he preach? He taught us everything that was in the Torah. What the Father loved, what the Father hated. And he taught about the gospel of the kingdom. And again, when I say gospel, we're using words that we're so inundated with that we really can't change. And I feel like you guys are like super, super high. All right, okay, so starting off in Exodus chapter 24, it's talking about Moses. And it says, "And he said unto Moses, Come unto Yahweh, thou and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye afar off. And Moses alone shall come near unto Yahweh, but they shall not come nigh, neither shall the people go up with him." Now, there's a reason for this. Had the people, other than Moses, gone up to the mount, they would have died, right? Just Moses keeping his face covered wasn't of great importance, because if Moses wouldn't have veiled his face, the children of Israel would have died, because Moses was in the glory of Yahweh. This is why it baffles me when people say Moses sinned because he clave the rock, right? When Scripture says very clearly that Yahweh did it. Again, let me not go down that path, but just understand we're going to be talking about the book of the covenant and the book of the law. They are one and the same. They are exactly the same thing. Verse 3, "And Moses came and told the people all the words of Yahweh and all of the judgments. And all of the people answered with one voice and said, All the words which Yahweh hath said, we will do. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh." Notice how it says, "of the Lord," all capital Lord. This is Yod He Vav He. "Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh, and rose up early in the morning, and builded an altar under a hill, and 12 pillars, according to the 12 tribes of Israel." He didn't make 13, he didn't make 14, he made 12. And notice how it says that Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh. Who is the voice of Yahweh? It is our Messiah, right? The Messiah came in the flesh. He was the visible image of the invisible Elohim, Yahweh. So this is not Moses' law. This is Yahweh's law that was given to Moses on Sinai. All right. Next, we're going to go to Exodus 31, 17 through 18. And again, let me go in there for more context. I'm going to start in 13. It says, "Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily, my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout all of your generations." Not some, all. "That you may know that I, Yahweh, do sanctifieth you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Every one that defile it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death." Second time he's saying this. "Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant." What is a perpetual covenant, and what does it mean when Yahweh says, "Surely the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant"? For the people that think we don't have to keep it today, you are sadly mistaken. "It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave unto Moses, when he had an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of Yahweh." Pretty simple, right? Okay, so we're seeing Moses has been given these instructions. And what did we see prior? The people said, all that Yahweh has said, from this voice that answers him, all of the words which Yahweh said, we will do. Question, did they? All right, let's go to Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 13. And it says, Thou camest down also upon Mount Sinai, and spakest with them from heaven, and gave them right judgments, and true laws, and good statutes, and commandments. Okay? So, for the people that think all of a sudden the law has changed, and that we don't have to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments anymore, that's a huge problem, right? Because it goes against what we're reading here in Scripture. And again, a lot of people are going to say, that's the old covenant. Well, I have news for you. Then even if you think we're in a new covenant, it doesn't change the laws or commandments or statutes. Okay? Nothing has changed. What we're going to find out here is what was added because they disobeyed at Sinai, right? All right, we're going to read Hebrews chapter 12, verses 18 and 19. Actually, I'm going to read through 21. It says, For ye are not come unto the mount, that it might be touched, and that it burned with fire, nor unto blackness and darkness and tempest. And the sound of the trumpet, remember this sound of a trumpet is the voice, right? And the voice of words, which voice that they heard, entreated that the word should not be spoken to them any more, for they could not endure that which was commanded. And if so much as a beast, and this is not talking about an animal, if so much as a beast touch the mountain, it shall be stoned or thrust through with a dart. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I exceedingly fear and quake. Now, again, I want you guys just to try, if you can, to imagine what was going on here, and this being something that you are witnessing, right? Moses, who had several encounters with Yeshua, or an angel of Yahweh, even when the angel is in the bush, Moses was still scared to look upon the bush, right? It said that he durst not look at the bush. Eventually he does, but just imagine the difference between back then when they were physically seeing angels or having these supernatural encounters with Yahweh compared to where we are today, right? And again, for us today, we're going based off of things that we're not physically seeing, although we do experience Yahweh through miracles and things that he does directly with us, especially when we're reading the Scripture. I've noticed a huge, I don't know really how to put it into words. I have a relationship with Yahweh because I study his word, and when studying his word, there are things that he reveals to me that are just mind-blowing, right? So there's that, but it's still, there's a big difference between physically seeing, and remember, the people that physically saw, they still didn't really truly believe. Even when the Messiah was walking the earth, they just couldn't grasp the idea that he was the Son of Yahweh and that he was walking amongst them. They had a hard time comprehending what he was saying. So this book, even then, when the Messiah first was born and as he comes onto the scene with the disciples, we see that even while he's with them, they can't really wrap their minds around the stuff that he's teaching, especially Peter, right? Peter was one of the ones that was the closest to the Messiah. And yet Peter didn't fully understand the things of Yeshua until after Yeshua died and ascends into heaven. All right, so now we're going to talk about the book of the law, or the book of the covenant, whichever you want to call it. And this covenant, it's a contract, right? And it's based upon Yahweh's commandments. And as we're about to read, you're going to see that this book of the law, which is what Moses was commanded to write, is also referred to as the book of the covenant, right? So for the people that say, we're in a new covenant, we don't have to keep those commandments, you're forgetting that Yeshua is a prophet sent by Yahweh that spoke the words of Yahweh, and he's renewing the covenant or the contract, the wedding contract. Okay, so this covenant is a marriage contract. This is why we are referring to it as the wedding covenant. It was given to Israel, and Israel disobeyed, and Yahweh gave them a bill of divorcement. Now he sends approximately 100 or more prophets throughout the entirety of the texts to warn the people. And every time he would send people, they would not listen. Not all. There was always a remnant of people that would do what Yahweh was suggesting. And even Yahweh, when he sends his son, Yeshua said that he wasn't sent for those that were already established. He was sent for the lost, right? The people that were where the people are today that are in the Christian church. The same thing. So again, this is a contract. So keep this in your mind. It's all based around our laws, which are not the same. I'm not going to say the laws of the U.S. are the same as the laws of Yahweh, because they're not. But they're founded. The principles of our laws here in America are founded on biblical concepts of the law. So keep in mind, Yahweh is the judge. Okay? Yeshua, that speaks Yahweh's words, your high priest and mediator, he is the faithful and trustworthy witness. So if you've ever been in a courtroom or you've watched a TV show where the judge is sitting there, then you have the jury, and then you have people that will come up and testify, which are witnesses, right? So the Messiah is someone who is going to testify whether you are for his Father or against him. And that goes for the Messiah as well. You can reject the Messiah, and Yahweh is going to reject you. Right? You can't take Yeshua and say, yes, he is God. You're rejecting both of them when you do that. You're ignoring the fact that Yahweh creates his Son, sends his Son into the world as salvation to bring us back into this contract without breaking it. Right? Too. You have to remember, and as we're going through this, you're going to start seeing that the law states that a man, when he divorces a woman because she plays the harlot or she's committed adultery, he cannot return back to her. If he does, that's an abomination. So we can't say that Yahweh in the flesh came down to the earth and remarries a harlot. That's nonsensical. Okay? So there had to be a way around that. And again, remember, this is a blood contract. So this is something that is written in blood. It's the same thing as when you get married. That marriage between you and your wife, or your wife and your husband, is technically a blood contract, right? Or it's spiritual. It's a spiritual contract. You're mixing your spirit with that other person's spirit, which is why Scripture tells us when a man leaves his mother and his father and he gets married, that those two people become one flesh. So if you are somebody that's younger and you're sleeping around with other people, just remember that you're binding yourself both physically and spiritually. That's the scary part to me. The physical part, you risk dis-ease and other things that can come from that. But the spiritual implications are that whatever and whoever it is that you're doing that with, if you don't know them, even if you do, you shouldn't be doing it. If you don't know them, you're picking up spiritual things from them that you will then carry with you because you've become one with them. And everybody that they have been a part of, right? So this has huge spiritual implications, which is why we're seeing what our youth is looking like today. Even when I was growing up, a lot of my friends, guy friends, they were into they lost a girl, they would find another one. Because of Yahweh, kept me just a different person. I was always in long-term committed relationships. Even though I wasn't living fully for Yahweh, I still knew that that wasn't something that I wanted to be a part of, right? Because a relationship, especially an intimate relationship with someone, is not something that you want to go sharing with everybody. And now it's gotten to the point to where, because of the evil that's in the world and because people are doing everything backwards, there's no spiritual connection with people when it comes to marriage in that aspect. And again, marriage is is not something that is very strong, especially in the Christian church. The Christian church has one of the highest levels of divorce rates out of even normal people. So anyhow, I just wanted to throw that in there so that people can understand that Yahweh is not only our Father, but spiritually speaking, He is our husband, right? And collectively, as us being Israel, we are the bride of Yahweh. Or some are going to be the bride of Yeshua, His Son. So again, we're going to cover this book of the law, or the book of the covenant. Exodus chapter 24, 6 through 8. It says, "And Moses took half of the blood and put it in the basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar." And listen to verse 7. "And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, All that Yahweh hath said we will do and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, Behold, the blood of the covenant, which Yahweh hath made with you concerning all of these words." So, we see that this is the book of the law. It's the book of, it's being referenced in Exodus 24 as the book of the covenant. Okay, so this is a contract, and it's sealed in blood. 2 Kings 22, 8 through 11. It says, "And Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of Yahweh. And Hilkiah gave him the book, and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the king and brought the king the word again and said, Thy servants have gathered the money that was found in the house and have delivered into the hand of them that do the work, that have oversight in the house of Yahweh. And Shaphan the scribe showed the king, saying, To Hilkiah the priest hath delivered the book. And Shaphan read it before the king, and it came to pass when the king heard the words of the book of the law, that he rent his clothes." Now, all of this is coming from the KJV, and it doesn't really matter where you look. In the book of Exodus, it is calling it the book of the covenant. In the book of 2 Kings, it is calling it the book of the law. Okay? The law and the covenant are the same exact thing. Okay? So when you say we are in a new covenant, it's not a new covenant. It is a renewed covenant. And the reason why it is a renewed covenant is because the people that are going into covenant with Yahweh now, after being asleep for 2,000 years, it is new to your hearing. Just like the song of Moses that's being sung in the book of Revelation. It is not a new song. It says they sung as it were a new song before Yahweh. Right? So this song of Moses is a song that is everlasting. Just like the law. It's an everlasting law. And again, we're going to see here how the sacrificial law. Remember, Moses had 2 tables of stone. One, the first one, he broke. Why? The people were down there building a golden calf, trying to worship Yahweh the way that they wanted to worship Yahweh. Right? And this goes back into this Trinity doctrine nonsense that people believe. Now, again, I'm saying this because the second time he goes up there to get the law, when he comes back down, remember there's disobedience now, because they just said all that Yahweh has said unto us in this book of the covenant we will do, right? And they didn't. So we just covered in 2 Kings 22. Now we're going to go to 2 Kings 23, the very next chapter, 1 through 2. It says, And the king sent and gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of Yahweh, and all the men of Judah, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant. Now, what did we just read it was called? In 2 Kings 22, verse 10, it says that it was the book that they read and heard, Hilkiah heard the words of the book of the law and rent his clothing. The very next chapter, in verse 2, it says, as he's reading this book of the covenant, in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant. Book of the law, book of the covenant. Same thing. All right, Exodus chapter 24, verse 8. Now again, remember this, before I go here, remember that this book of the law, or this book of the covenant, Yahweh has given to his people, the children of Israel, and is locked this covenant in blood and gives it to Moses, and it is now a contract. This is a sealed in blood contract. All right, back to Exodus chapter 24, verse 8. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold the book of the covenant, which Yahweh has made with you concerning all of these words. Okay, so when we're talking about the 10 commandments of Yahweh, right? Or the wedding covenant, this wedding contract, it is grounded by 10 laws. It's established upon 10 laws. But it's grounded by the blood, and from that blood we have statutes and ordinances that are written in or written down in the book of the law of Yahweh, which tell us how to keep these 10 commandments. So when people say, oh, you're keeping the old covenant, no one can keep 613 commandments. Well, first of all, they're not commandments. They're laws, right? And there's not 613. We know that if we read the Torah, it's telling us how we keep the 10 commandments. And as we've taught before, nobody keeps all of the law. Nobody can. And I'm not saying that you can't keep the law. I'm saying you can't keep laws that don't pertain to you, just as the Messiah didn't. The Messiah didn't keep laws for women. He was not a woman. Those laws didn't apply to him. A lot of the laws, if you've ever seen the pie chart of the law, you're going to see that a very large portion of the law has to do with farming laws or agriculture laws. Those, if you're not a farmer, you do not have to keep. We don't have a Levitical priesthood, which is another large part of those laws. If you're not a Levite priest, those laws don't apply to you, just like they didn't apply to Yeshua. So as we're going into the New Testament now, we're going to Matthew chapter 22. Starting in verse 35 through 40. And again, pay close attention to what we're reading. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting the Messiah, okay? And saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? So he's asking the question, what is the great commandment in the law? It's not saying which is the great commandment of all commandments. He's saying, what is the great commandment in the law? And Yeshua said unto him, Thou shalt love Yahweh your Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second, remember, this man's only asked, what is the greatest commandment in the law? Now Yeshua is being tempted, and he's responding with a follow-up question to this man's question. And he's saying, this is the first, and the second, which is like unto it, is thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all of the law and all of the prophets. Okay, this is, again, if you're a Christian, please be attentive and be honest with yourself. What did he just say? Did he just give 2 new commandments? No. Again, this commandment to love Yahweh with all of your heart, soul, and mind is an old commandment. Loving your neighbor as yourself is also an old commandment written in the Torah. The first 5 books of your Bible, it's written in the law. It's a law. So listen to what Moses says about this book of the covenant. Back to Deuteronomy chapter 32, 44 through 47. And Moses came and spoke all the words of this song into the ears of the people, and Hoshea the son of Nun. And Moses made an end of speaking all the words to Israel. And he said unto them, Set your hearts unto all the words which I testify among you this day, which you shall command your children to observe, to do all the words of this law. For it is not a vain thing for you, because it is your life, and through this thing you shall prolong your days in the land whither you go over Jordan to possess it. Now, this goes into a whole nother topic, which is vanity and things that don't profit. When he's saying it's not a vain thing for you, it is not a difficult thing. It's not something that's far from you, right? And then he goes on to say, because this law is your life. And it's not just mentioned here. It's mentioned in many places, right? About the law of life and liberty and how it's perfect. All right, so remember what Moses just said. All the words of this law, for it is not a vain thing for you, because it is your life. And it shall prolong your days in the land, if you keep it, whither you go over Jordan to possess it. Now, remember, these are the same people that just said, all the words, Moses, that you just got from Yeshua through Yahweh by the finger of Yahweh, and told us, we will do those. Now, we also are about to find out that they don't do any of them, and they don't go into the land. That's a big problem. Now, if there's a second Exodus, which the prophets clearly state there is, how are you going to enter into the promised land and return back as Yahweh's offering if you're not in covenant with him? Again, you're not just confessing the Messiah's name. What you're doing is you're completely ignoring all of the Old Testament with the understanding of the modern day Christian church telling you, oh, now that the Messiah came, as a prophet, he can change whatever laws he wants to, and he gave new laws, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard, because again, Yeshua didn't teach anything new. He didn't say anything new. He didn't change anything. Even though he says, a new commandment I give to you. It's not a new commandment though, is it? When we go back and we look at these things that he's saying, they're not new. It's just new to us. All right, John chapter 14, verse 6. And also remember this. Remember what Moses just said, that this law and doing it is your life. Remember Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19. Anybody that doesn't listen to the words of Yeshua, which Yahweh said he was going to send, the prophet, Yahweh would require what? Their life. And we see an example of this from these very people that just said they were going to keep the commandments. John 14:6 says, Yeshua saith unto them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Again, I want you guys to make a note of this, because as we move forward, you're going to start seeing something very important, which is the Messiah, when he says this, he's not just saying, I'm the way, the truth, and the life for no reason. The Messiah is saying this because the way, the truth, and the life is the Torah. As we just got one part of that. Keeping the commandments of Yahweh is your life, your length of days, and your pass into the new earth. Okay? And it's not just somebody that chooses, okay, well, I'm going to keep the commandments and I'm going to be a good person. No. You have to be in covenant with the Father, and you have to have his Spirit dwelling in you if you're going to have protection over you during tribulation, because there is no rapture. And again, if you believe Jesus is God, please stick around and listen to this entire thing. All right, now we're going to get into the blessings and curses part of this. So we're seeing that Yahweh has made this covenant, right? And we see that Israel is about to start breaking this covenant. And we're also going to see that they're misled by false teachers, right? And Yahweh starts sending prophets, and they don't listen to the warnings that Yahweh gives them by him sending the prophets, and the penalty of breaking the law. And again, remember, this isn't just them breaking any law. This is them breaking a blood covenant. Now it's going to bring on curses, right? Remember, prior to this, all they had to do was just listen and be obedient. Now, there's going to be a punishment added because of their disobedience. Guys, give me 1 second. Obedient. Now, there's going to be a punishment added because of their disobedience. Guys, give me 1 second. Guys, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, Deuteronomy 28. I'm going to read 1 through 2. I'm trying to cut back on this being so super long because I know people's attention spans are not very long. But I also don't want people thinking that I'm skipping over stuff either. I can't read all of Deuteronomy 28. I'm just going to read Deuteronomy 1 through 2, 9 through 10, and then 12 through 14. You guys can read Deuteronomy 28 on your own time. I've read through this in great detail. And you should do the same. So what I'm going to explain is Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14 is Yahweh explaining, if you keep his commandments, all of these blessings that will overtake you. After verse 14, from 15 to 67, I believe it is all the curses if you disobey. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of Deuteronomy 28. Please read this on your own time. Remember that we're reading verses 1 through 2 first, then 9 through 10, then 12 through 14. And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto the voice, Yeshua, of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe to do all of his commandments which I command thee this day, that Yahweh your Elohim will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. And all of these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if you shall hearken unto the voice, the finger, the Messiah who was in front of Moses, the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh will establish thee a holy people unto himself, as he has sworn unto thee, if you shall keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim and walk in his ways. Way, the truth, the life. You're going to see this over and over again when you're reading the Torah, that the Torah, the law, is your life. It is the way. It is the truth. And Yeshua is the word in the flesh. Okay? And all the people of the earth shall see that you were called by the name of Yahweh, according to what? The Torah. What is the name of Yahweh? The Torah. It is your life, your breath. And they shall be afraid of thee. So all the nations of the earth will be afraid of you, and you'll be blessed by everything that he says he'll bless you with, if you keep his commandments. All right, now verses 12 through 14. Yahweh shall open unto thee his good treasure in the heavens, to give the rain unto thy land in its season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and shall not borrow. And Yahweh shall make thee the head, and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if thou shalt hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, which I command thee this day, to observe them and do them. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. So we keep seeing, if you keep these commandments, you must keep these commandments. You must keep the Sabbath day. It's an everlasting perpetual covenant. It is a sign between Yahweh and his children, to let the world know that we are his children, right? Not only that, but also that it's making a clear distinction here that we are a peculiar, chosen race of people that Yahweh has chosen above all the races of the earth. It's very clear, and people that want to deny that, that's fine, but there are multiple places in Scripture that will testify against you if you say that's not true. Now, in Deuteronomy 28, verse 15, But it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe to do all of his commandments and statutes, which I command thee this day, that all of these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. All right, now I'm going to jump down to verse 30 through 32, 33. Yeah, 30 to 33. Thou shalt betroth the wife. These are the curses. You shall beget a wife, and another man shall lie with her. This is part of not keeping the commandments, right? Thou shalt build a house, and you shall not dwell in that house. You shall plant a vineyard, and you shall not gather the grapes of the vineyard. Thine ox shall be slain before your eyes, and you shall not eat thereof. Thine ass shall violently be taken away from thine enemies. That's the first time I've read it like that. But technically, that's exactly what's going to happen. Your ass will be violently taken away by these other nations. But this is talking about an animal. Thine ass shall violently be taken away before thy face. Sorry about that, guys. That one was funny. And shall not be restored unto thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. So if you don't want to be violently snatched away, then you need to be keeping the commandments, right? Verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given to another people, and thine eyes shall look for thy daughters that shall be given to another people, and they shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no strength in your hand to do anything about it whatsoever. The fruit of thy labors shall a nation which you do not know eat it up, locusts. And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. Yahweh shall bring thee, and thy king, which he shall set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone. And you shall become an astonishment, and a proverb, and a byword amongst all nations, whither Yahweh shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but a little in, for the locust shall consume it. Again, this goes way deeper than just the planting of seed. The stranger that is within thee shall get up high above thee, and thou shalt come down very low. And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall become the tail. Moreover, all of these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, until you're destroyed, because you did not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to keep his commandments and statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be for a sign and a wonder upon your seed forever. Now, this forever thing is important, because if you keep his commandments, it's something that you must do perpetually forever. If you don't, all of these curses are going to come upon you and your seed after you forever. Okay? And a lot of people are going to say, well, I thought the fathers are the only ones that can stand in for their own sins. That is the case. However, if you forget Yahweh, you're not going to raise your children up in the way that they should go. And Yahweh says, because you have forgotten me, I will forget your children. Right? What protection do your children have? And again, we're talking about kids that are not of age to make the decision of what's right and wrong, right? They're not of age to be held accountable. So again, this is not something that Yahweh is playing around about. This is something that's being told to you by Yahweh if you're disobedient. Therefore, shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and thirst and nakedness and want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. And Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue you will not understand. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. Which means, again, in other words, throughout prophecy it tells us, when this flood of nations happens, yes, the locust army, when this locust army comes in, it says they will have no regard for gold and silver. They won't care what you have, who you are. They're going to unalive you because of who you are, Israel. Okay? They're not going to be unaliving themselves. Scripture tells us in Joel chapter 2 that if one of them fall upon a spear, right, that they won't be hurt. They will not be wounded. So this is spiritual entities that are going to overtake the body, and then that body, just as Legion, remember, he was breaking out of fetters, chains. He had supernatural strength because he had over 2,000 demons in him, right? So again, just remember that Yahweh's warning Moses and the people all throughout Deuteronomy how he wanted his law to be kept and the way that they were to do it, and then he gives them this list in Deuteronomy 28 and tells them, these are the things that you must do if you want to be blessed. If you do these things, you're blessed. If you don't do these things, all of these curses overtake you. So again, from verse 1 to verse 14, those are all blessings. It's basically the opposite of the curses. But from verse 15 to 67, those are all the curses. That's being placed under the law. Okay? The law is given, and you are walking in that law. How can you be under it? You're doing it. When you don't do it, you're placed under the law. Let's see. All right, I'm going to go. We're gonna go into prophecy for a little bit because I want to show you guys how Yahweh has given the law to the people, and then they start doing the complete opposite of what they said they would do. Right? And again, keep in mind, this is a blood contract, a blood covenant, sealed in blood. This new covenant, the one that's been established, is through Yeshua's blood. Right? So understand, the blood for atoning for sin was being done by the blood of bulls and goats, which Yahweh never wanted. That was something he never desired. It was something that was placed upon the people because of disobedience. Yeshua, when he walks the earth and then they crucify him, that punishment is then taken away. The Messiah's blood will now cover you if you are in contract with the Father, in covenant, right? You're walking in his commandments, obedient to his commandments. Not doing what our forefathers did, doing what Yahweh commands so that you can walk in the blessings of keeping this law. Jeremiah chapter 11, 1 through 5. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, hear ye the words of this covenant. Now, we're further along now, right? We were talking about Moses and them being given the law. Now we're jumping forward here. We're in the time of Jeremiah. Listen to what Yahweh says. The word, Yeshua, that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, hear ye the words of this covenant, and speak unto the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and say thou unto them, thus saith Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, cursed be the man that obeyeth not the words of this covenant. Question, what is the covenant? What did we establish in the very beginning of this? This covenant is also known as what? The book of the law, correct? So what is Yahweh saying? Cursed be the man that does not obey the words of this covenant, which Moses wrote, or was given by the finger of Yahweh, and then commanded to write the laws on how to do it. Which I commanded your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. So who were the people that were in the land of Egypt? And who did Moses free? And then they were given this law and said they would keep it and didn't. Now we're forward and we're starting to see Yahweh's having to repeat himself through the prophets, warning the people once again to go back into covenant. which I commanded your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt from the iron furnace, saying, Obey my voice and do them, according to all which I commanded you. So shall you be my people, and I will be your Elohim, that I might perform the oath which I have sworn unto your fathers, to give to them a land flowing with milk and honey, as it is this day. Then answered I and said, So be it, O Yahweh. So here we see Jeremiah is doing the same exact thing as what Moses was commanded to do. Give this covenant or this contract or this book of the law to these people. And if they refuse, they're going to be cursed. If they obey, they will be blessed and they will be the head of all nations. And people wonder why we're in the position we're in today. All right, John chapter 7, 45 through 51. Then came the officers of the chief priests and Pharisees, and they said unto them, Why have you not brought him? And the officers answered, Never a man spake like this man. Then answered them the Pharisees, Are you also deceived? Have any of the rulers or of the Pharisees believed on him? But this people who knoweth not the law are cursed. I'm going to skip to verse 51. Doeth our law judge any man before it hear him, and know what he doeth? There's quite a few things that are going on here, right? The officers of these chief priests that go out to try to arrest Yeshua and bring him, they're afraid to, and their response is when they're asked, where is he? They say, never has a man spoken like this man. So imagine you're in the military, you're a police officer or whatever, and your commanding officer tells you to go arrest somebody, and you come back and you say, I can't arrest this man. This man is like nobody I've ever seen before. That's what's happening here. And they answered the Pharisees and say, Are you also deceived by this man? But this people who knoweth not the law, what law? This book of the covenant, are cursed. And then the question is asked, does our law judge any man before it hears the entire matter? And know what it is that he's done? Did they hear out what Yeshua did, and did they falsely accuse him and then crucify him anyways? Doesn't the law state that a thief is to pay back whatever he stole sevenfold, not to be crucified? You can see that these chief priests, the scribes, the Pharisees, the chief peoples, as we covered the other day, didn't keep the law. They did their own thing. They were ruling and reigning in their own strength, in their own power, doing whatever they felt like doing. They weren't being obedient to Yahweh. They were trying to unalive Yeshua the entire time. So we're seeing that this curse that we read in Deuteronomy 28, and it's also, you can read all of the stuff that we were reading in Leviticus 26. But Israel falls away from the law, which is this, again, this contract. It's a wedding contract, a covenant, sealed in blood. And the people are, even in the book of Jeremiah, which we're about to go back into, they're just deliberately disobeying all the prophets. And again, this is Yahweh's long suffering, right? The people are serving other gods. They're mixing their seed, and Yahweh is sending prophets over and over. Remember, he says, I'm rising up early every morning and sending my prophets. And the people that the prophets are being sent to are taking the lives of the prophets. And they're telling the prophets, don't teach to us these things. Who can bear it? Teach to us smooth things. Tickle our ears. What you're trying to say is too hard for us to bear. Nobody can keep 613 commandments. Again, there are not 613 laws. There are 10 commandments, which are not a burden. They are not far from you. Yet the Christian church has convinced everybody that we shouldn't be keeping it. Now, look what happens after Yahweh warns everybody. Jeremiah chapter 3, 6 through 12. Yahweh said also unto me in the days of Josiah the king, Hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there has played the harlot. And I said after all she had done, Turn thou unto me. But she returned not, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it also. So Judah and Jerusalem is all 12 tribes. And I saw when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce. So Yahweh has divorced backsliding Israel, not Judah. Judah's not sent away until after Yeshua is born, because after Yeshua is born, then Judah does the same thing. But Judah is preserved long enough for the Messiah to be born as a blame, coming from a bloodline that was still keeping the commandments. But then we see during the time of Yeshua, they had already started to slip away, and they also receive a bill of divorce. So he says, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce, yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, and went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass, through the lightness of her whoredoms, that she defiled the land. Remember, sin came into the land because of what the people were doing. And committed adultery with stones and with stocks. Now this is important, guys. They're committing adultery with stones and stocks. Again, you need to look into these things. And if there are people that are in the comments, which I know Michael's in here, I know Vessel of Yah is in here, I know there's plenty of people in here that know what the stones and stocks are. If you guys want to put it in the comments, you can. I would recommend you go look into this so you understand. Again, just like we were doing earlier today with the animals in Scripture, it's going to tell you a little bit more information. It's not, how can you commit adultery with a stone and a stock? And yet for all of this, her treacherous sister Judah hath not turned unto me with her whole heart, but frayingly said to Yahweh, saith Yahweh, and Yahweh said unto me, the backsliding Israel hath justified herself more than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words towards the north. Who comes from the north? So in other words, what Yahweh is saying to Jeremiah is, the locust army is now coming because you people refuse to hear my words. And say, return thou backsliding Israel, saith Yahweh, and I will not cause my anger to fall upon you, for I am merciful, saith Yahweh, and I will not keep my anger forever. Now, also understand that there was a separation between the tribes. One goes north and one goes south, or a part goes north and a part goes south. That also pertains to this. But understand, when they don't return and they're given this bill of divorcement, the locust army comes from the north. Jeremiah chapter 3, 19 through 25. But I said, how shall I put thee among the children and give thee a pleasant land and a goodly heritage of the host of nations? And I said, thou shalt call me my father, and shall not turn away from me. Surely as a wife treacherously departeth from her husband, so have you dealt treacherously with me, O house of Israel, saith Yahweh. A voice was heard upon the high places, weeping and supplications of the children of Israel, for they have perverted their way, and they have forgotten Yahweh their Elohim. Return ye, backsliding children, and I will heal your backslidings. Behold, we come unto thee, for thou art Yahweh our Elohim. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and from the multitude of the mountains, the hills and the mountains, the people. Truly, in Yahweh our Elohim is salvation of Israel. For shame has devoured the labor of our fathers from our youth, their flocks and their herds, their sons and their daughters. Remember, we read these in the curses in Deuteronomy 28. Stocks, their herds, their houses, their sons, their daughters, their wives, everything is flipped upside down and taken away from them. Because, verse 25, listen, we lie down in our shame, and in confusion covereth us. For we have sinned against Yahweh our Elohim, we and our fathers from our youth, even unto this day, and we have not obeyed the voice of Yahweh our Elohim. So what happened to them? The curses fell on them. Not only that, they take the life of the prophets. Jeremiah chapter 12, 9 through 13. Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. This is Yahweh speaking. Now, you guys can figure that out. How is Yahweh's heritage become unto him as a speckled or spotted bird? The birds round about her are against her. Come ye, assemble, all the beasts of the field, come to devour. Who's he speaking about? Israel mixing their seed with other nations, and now the locust army has been called. Many pastors have destroyed my vineyard. They have trodden my portion underfoot, and they have made my pleasant portion a desolate wilderness. They have made it desolate, and being desolate it mourneth unto me. The whole land is made desolate, because no man lay it to heart. The spoilers, the locust army, are come up upon the high places through the wilderness, for the sword of Yahweh shall devour from one end of the land even to the other end, and no flesh shall have peace. They have sown wheat, but shall reap thorns. Again, what was the punishment in Genesis chapter 3? What did Yahweh say that Adam was going to bring forth, that the earth was going to bring forth? Thorns and thistles, briars, the other nations. They have put themselves to pain, but shall not profit, and they shall be ashamed of your revenues because of the fierce anger of Yahweh. Now, again, I'm just showing you in one prophecy, one prophet, what happens when people disobey and why it's happening. Jeremiah chapter 44. I'll read 3 through 5 and then 15 through 23. Because of their wickedness, which they have committed to provoke me to anger, in that they went up to burn incense and to serve other gods, whom they knew not, neither they nor their fathers. Howbeit I sent to you all of my servants, the prophets, rising early and sending them, saying, Oh, do not this abominable thing that I hate. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, to turn from their wickedness, but to burn incense unto other gods, like the Queen of Heaven. And what are they doing today? Same thing. Catholic Church is worshiping Mary, the Queen of Heaven. Not the mother of Yeshua, the Queen of Heaven. Ishtar. Verse 15 through 23. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all of the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of Yahweh, we will not hearken unto you. Now, what's happening here? The men have become so weak that the women are doing the customs of the Egyptians by burning incense, and the men find out. And once the men find out what the wives have done, burning incense unto other gods, not only do they know that their wives do this, but then their response to Jeremiah is, As for everything that Yahweh has spoken unto you to tell us, we will not listen to you. That's what they say. But we will certainly do whatsoever thing goeth forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings and our princes, the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. For we have had plenty of victuals, and in the streets of Jerusalem, and we have seen no evil. But since we left off, since they started, since we started to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword, by the famine. And when we burned incense to the Queen of Heaven, and poured out drink offerings unto her, did we make her cakes, hot cross buns? You know, like the whole Easter celebration and all of this. This is Ishtar. Easter. Then Jeremiah said to the people, and to the men, and to the women, and to all the people which had given him the answer, saying, the incense that you burn in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, you and your fathers, your kings, your princes, and the people of the land, did not Yahweh remember them? And came it not into his mind? So that Yahweh could no longer bear because of the evil of your doings and because of the abominations which you have committed. Therefore is your land a desolation and an astonishment and a curse, without an inhabitant, as it is this day. Because you have burned incense, and because you have sinned against Yahweh, and you have not obeyed the voice of Yahweh, nor walked in his laws, nor in his statutes, nor in his testimonies, therefore this evil has happened unto you as it is this day. One prophet out of the books that are in the 66 and also the books that were removed. One prophet is showing you what it's like to disobey Yahweh and what happens as a result of being disobedient to Yahweh. Now, we're seeing here that this sin becomes increasingly worse and worse over time, and it becomes so bad that they start worshiping the sun, or in other words, Baal, right? And also, this feminine spirit referred to as Ashtartes, or the Queen of Heaven, Easter, or Mary, Mother Mary. And then every time Yahweh sends prophets to try to bring the people back into covenant, we're seeing that they're refusing to listen to what it is that Yahweh is telling the prophets and warning them. Hey, you guys need to repent. You need to return back into covenant with the Father before he consumes you. Now, stop and think for a minute. What is happening today? It's not that any of us are prophets, right? It's simply the fact that we know what happens through the entirety of the book, and we know that this is a reoccurring pattern. This is something that happens over and over again. We know that Yahweh said that his laws, statutes, commandments, his Sabbaths, his feasts, they're perpetual, they're forever, they're never ending. As soon as these people start to mix their seed, they start doing the customs of the people of whatever land they're in, which Egypt is the land that's being talked about in Jeremiah right now. But they're burning incense to other gods, fallen gods. The same gods that came down in Genesis chapter 3 and Genesis chapter 6. And their children. And this is why Yahweh said not to make a covenant with these people. Not to marry your children to their children. Not to have any doings with these people, and that you should live away from these people. But because we didn't listen, and we planted field to field, meaning race to race, kingdom to kingdom, we haven't listened to anything that Yahweh's commanded us to do. Now we're starting to see everything that's going on in the world. And it's very, very clear. It shouldn't be difficult. The thing that becomes difficult is people don't understand who Israel today is. And I'm talking about true Israel, not people pretending to be Israel. I'm talking about serving Yahweh and being in covenant with him, not just confessing a name and doing church customs, which is the same thing that they were doing. They were worshiping the sun god, the god of Sunday church, Balaam, Baal priests, right? Jeremiah chapter 2, 6 through 8. Neither said they, where is Yahweh that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through the land and deserts and pits, and through a land of drought and the shadow of death, and through a land that no man passed through, and where no man dwelt? The priest said, not, where is Yahweh? And they that handled the law knew me not. The pastors also transgressed against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal, and walked after things that do not profit. Wherefore, I will yet plead with you, saith Yahweh, and with your children and your children's children will I plead. Now, again, listen to what happens. The priest said, not in their hearts, where is Yahweh? And they that handled the law did not know him, just like in the days of the Messiah, just like now. The pastors also transgressed against me. Every single church you see, same story. and the prophets prophesied by Baal. Jesus is God. We don't have to keep the law. We're going to keep Christmas and Easter and birthdays and Thanksgiving because it's our new moons and our new feasts, not the ones that Yahweh commanded us to keep. We'll do anything except that. Nothing new under the sun. Now, Isaiah chapter 1, 5 through 10. Same exact thing's about to happen. Listen very closely. Yahweh speaking to Israel. Why should you be stricken any more? You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart is faint. From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate, your cities are burned with fire, and your lands, strangers devour it in your presence. Again, what is happening right now? And it is desolate, as overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodged in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Except Yahweh of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been likened unto Gomorrah. Hear ye the word of Yahweh, you rulers of Sodom, and give ear unto the law of our Elohim, you people of Gomorrah. Warnings are being sent out, right? Warning after warning after warning after warning, and yet, what do the people keep saying? Nope, we're not going to do it, Yahweh. We're going to do it our way. We're going to take your son, and we're going to say he's God, and we're going to worship him because we believe that he is God, not you. We don't believe who wisdom is. We don't believe the Messiah when he says he is the bright and morning star. We're going to make you God. And it's okay if you're a Torah keeper. You can still celebrate Christmas, which is totally a pagan tradition. You can celebrate Easter, which, again, if you knew the origins of it, if you don't already, it would sicken you. If you actually love Yahweh and you're in covenant with him, you would never keep any of these things. But yet people will find an excuse for everything. People will say, well, yeah, no big deal. Easter, we celebrate Easter. Why? Why do you follow the customs of the pagans? Why do you take eggs and dip them and color them? Do you know where that custom came from? Or would you be okay today, which a lot of people in the world would be because this is where we're at with the world, but would you be okay with men and women, which there is a country where this is legal, but would you be okay with men and women having intercourse in the streets as a celebration? Kind of similar to almost to what we're seeing now, right? To where grown men and women can walk around with no clothing on in front of little children. And would you be okay with watching all of these different people having basically orgies, right? And getting all the women pregnant on the day of Easter, Ishtar. And then 9 months later, on December 25th, which is supposedly our Messiah's birthday. It's not my Messiah's birthday, it's Jesus' birthday, right? And that's right when those children are being born and offered through the fire of Moloch, which just so happens to be Nimrod's birthday. And Ishtar is Nimrod's mother. And they get together and they have a child named Tammuz, which is why the passages in Scripture are telling you that the people that started Lent, they're doing these pagan traditions, and they're celebrating and weeping for Tammuz, right? Where they take the ash and rub a cross on the forehead. And again, people will say, where's your proof? It's right here in front of me. It's not hard. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. All it takes is knowing who Yahweh is and knowing where these pagan traditions stem from and why. And then people wonder, like, well, they put all their trust in the media. They put all their trust in people that they grow more fond of on TV than they do their own family and friends, right? And they're self-absorbed. They're not people that are willing to do things for other people. They're self-absorbed, and it's all what they can get for themselves, right? It's all about them. And again, we were warned about the times and how things would look in the last times, and we are there. All right, so moving forward now, we're going to go to Ezekiel chapter 36, 17 through 18. Now, understand that this wedding covenant is a type and shadow, right? With a husband and the bride. But as the children, again, the children or the body collectively of Israel is seen as the bride of Yahweh, and Yahweh being the husband. Does that make sense? So again, this is a book of parables. I used to struggle with this, calling God my father or Yahweh my father, because I didn't have a father around. So me trying to place this word and say that Yahweh is my father was a difficult thing. But nonetheless, it's a parable, right? So this is what the wedding covenant is. We just saw we were given a bill of divorce. We see in book of Revelation 21 that Yahweh brings New Jerusalem, which is the bride, down to the new earth. Okay, so the people are going to be remarried or reunited back with the Father, and the Father, we will see him after the 1,000-year millennial reign. We will tabernacle with him. But first, we have 1,000 years with his Son as king of Israel, for that 1,000-year period of time, and people will live to be up to 1,000 years old. It does not mean that you will not die or cannot die on the new earth. It does not mean that you will not sin or cannot sin on the new earth. You will have free will to learn and feed and be able to be healed and live safely. The people that don't will be cursed. Same thing that will be happening here, only all of the most evil people that have chosen Satan will be removed for the most part. There will be a remnant of people that will be left over, that Satan, after that 1,000-year millennial period, will be let loose. Satan will gather those people again to make war on the saints. All right, Ezekiel 36, 17 through 18. Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in the land, their own land, they defiled it by their own way and their own doings. Their way was before me as uncleanness of a removed woman. What is uncleanness of a removed woman? Adultery. So what is Yahweh saying here in Ezekiel? When they went into the land, they started serving other gods, and Yahweh looks at that as a woman committing adultery on her husband. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, you are a bride. Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for their idols wherewith they had polluted it. Now, note how this land, Yahweh's not happy with this, even in the garden. The garden was paradise until adultery was committed. Again, not only on Yahweh, but between the man and his wife. Okay, that's how all sin started, in the garden. And then it continues in Genesis chapter 6 with the rest of the fallen who fell with Satan. Okay, so this again shouldn't be that difficult for people to wrap their minds around, although I do understand people are blinded. Ezekiel chapter 16, 6 through 10. When I passed by you, I saw you wallowing in your blood, and I said to you, though you are in the blood, live. Yes, I said to you, though you are in the blood, live. I caused you to multiply as that which grows in the field, and you increased and grew great, and you attained to your excellent ornament. Your breasts were formed, and your hair grew, yet you were naked and bare. Now, then I passed by you and looked at you, and behold, your time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. Yes, I swore to you, and you entered into a covenant with, and I entered a covenant with you, says Yahweh, and you became mine. Then I washed you with water, being baptized. I thoroughly washed away your blood from you, and I anointed you with oil. Now, what does Yahweh tell us? That when that sword's coming across the land, if we don't warn the people, their blood is on our hands. And then the people that are doing all of these sins, they're shedding innocent blood and they're causing people to be led away. This is the blood that needs to be washed away from us, right? And then we're being anointed with oil. And again, this oil goes into the Torah, the understanding and the knowledge and the principles of Yahweh. I clothed you as with embroidered work, and I put sealskin shoes on you, and I dressed you with fine linen and covered you with silk. So, again, Yahweh is teaching us, if we walk in His ways and we're following this book of the law, its statutes, its ordinances, that it is a sign for the rest of the world that He is our husband or our Elohim. And if we keep all that is written in the book of the covenant, we get to stand in His authority to rule the earth. Okay, so in the beginning, remember, Yahweh said, let us create man in our image and in our likeness, and let them have dominion and rule over the earth, just like Adam had in the garden. But that was lost because they didn't do what Yahweh told them to do, which is a reoccurring pattern. Okay, now we're going to go into Exodus 31, 13 through 14. Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout all of your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh that doeth sanctifieth you. You shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Every one that defile it shall surely be put to death, for whosoever does any work thereon, that soul shall be cut off from among the people. Again, remember this, it's very important. Deuteronomy 28, 45 through 46. Moreover, all of these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and shall overtake thee, until you're destroyed, because you hearkened not unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to keep His commandments and statutes, which He commanded thee. They shall be upon thee, upon you. How is it that the commandments are upon you? It's the seal of Yahweh. It's His mark. The mark of the beast, or the mark of Satan, is the opposite. It's being disobedient. So anybody who's not in covenant with Yahweh, that doesn't keep His commandments, you already bear the mark of Satan. Don't be sitting around waiting for some physical mark. You already have it. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. What should? His laws, His statutes, and His commandments. Forever. Not, oh, now the Messiah came, now it's just 2. No, those weren't new commandments. Those 2 were a summary of the 10. So the Sabbath is a sign for the rest of the entire world to know that we are set apart with Yahweh and that we are His bride. And not only just the Sabbath, the Sabbaths, right? There are different feast days that we should be keeping, but we can't at the moment. And the Shabbat we know is every 7 days. We know that's been the same consistently throughout time. 7 days has always been 7 days. The calendar, however, is a completely different matter, and Yahweh prophesied that those things would be taken away from us. Now, if we do these things, it says that Yahweh gives us authority, and that He will be our Father and we will be His children, or He will be our husband and we will be His bride. All right, Ezekiel chapter 20, 15 through 22, and then 34 through 37. It says, Yet also I lifted up my hand unto them in the wilderness, that I would not bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands, because they despised my judgments. What do the Christians say today? Why are you trying to place me under the law? We're not under the law. We're under the Messiah's law. And walked not in my statutes, but polluted my Sabbaths, for my and their heart went after their idols. Nevertheless, my eyes spared them from destroying them, neither did I make an end of them in the wilderness. But I said unto their children in the wilderness, walk you not in the statutes of your fathers, neither observe the judgments, nor defile yourselves with their idols. For I am Yahweh your Elohim. Walk in my statutes and keep my judgments and do them. And hallow my Sabbaths, and it shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. Notwithstanding, the children of Israel rebelled against me, and they walked not in my statutes, neither kept my judgments to do them, which if a man do, he shall live by them. They polluted my Sabbaths, then said, I would pour out my fury upon them to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. Nevertheless, I withdrew my hand, Yeshua, and wrought for my name's sake, that it should not be polluted in the sight of the heathen, in whose sight I brought them from. And I will bring you out from the people, and I will gather you out of the countries wherein you are scattered, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out. That mighty hand, Yeshua. Outstretched arm and fury, the 144,000. Okay, that's how the gathering happens. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness in the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, says Yahweh. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Now, if we're in a new covenant, how are all of these prophecies going to be fulfilled about us entering into this bond of this new covenant? Again, people are forgetting. Remember, Moses was given the law. Then the people said, we will obey. Then he sprinkles blood on the book of the covenant and on the people, sealing it, and they disobeyed. We're about to find out what happened because of them being disobedient, but he doesn't destroy them. They die in the wilderness, and he tells them they're not allowed to enter the promised land. So the deal was, if you keep my commandments, I'll bless you, and I'm going to bring you into this land. But instead, they disobey. They wander the wilderness for 40 years. They are given a sacrificial punishment because they disobeyed the first time the commandments were given. And on top of that, he tells their children, because he's long-suffering, after sending prophets to them and warning them over and over and over again, that if their children, and I'm talking about those that were in the wilderness, if their children did not do the things that their parents were doing and followed him, that he would bring them into the land. And what happens? Caleb, Joshua, people that had another spirit, which was Yahweh's, they were able to enter the promised land and lead those children of the disobedient parents who were not allowed to enter into the land. Same goes for us today. You are not in the new earth. You are not in the land. You are in Babylon. Although the Messiah has spilled his blood and sealed a covenant, you are not in that covenant until you're in that land. Until the Messiah returns and removes the yoke of Babylon from our necks, you are not in the new covenant. And again, if people would just study, you would know when the new covenant begins, because the prophets tell us exactly when it happens, right? Exactly when the house of Judah and the house of Israel become one house. And no, that did not happen in 1948. That is a sham, okay? That is something that has been overlooked by many people who do not believe in things that are actually taking place right now. And on top of that, people have the nerve to get upset with us for pointing this stuff out. And again, there's nothing new under the sun. To think Yahweh changed his mind all of a sudden, and all of a sudden you're going to be disobedient, and all you have to do is just love, and you don't even know what the biblical definition of love is, how are you going to enter the new earth? Yahweh says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Not if you love me, confess the name of the Messiah. That's part of it. Confessing and believing that Yahweh sent Yeshua is part of it, but that's not what the Christians are doing. The Christians are saying, yeah, Jesus is God. God came down in the flesh. even though God is not a man that he should lie, nor the Son of Man that he should repent, even though the earth can't contain him, even though he's not going to break his own laws, statutes, and commandments, yet somehow the Christian church is in the same delusion. No matter what you share with them, they don't want to hear it. I'm not going to say all, because there are some that when they hear this, they're like, oh, let me go study this out for myself. And then they come into truth. It's the same way I woke up, the same way everybody else in here woke up. There's very few, the younger generations, the ones that have an ear that have been called of Yahweh, they pass all of that indoctrination that we had to go through. They go right into the truth, and then they shoot up quick. All right, Hebrews chapter 4, 1 through 11. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left of us of entering into his rest, that any of you, talking about us today, should come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them being those in the wilderness. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. Now, people are going to say that, well, see, you only have to have faith. No, they didn't have faith in doing what he was commanding them to do. That's why they didn't enter the promised land. They were disobedient. They had evil hearts of unbelief in chapter 3 in departing from the living God. And they broke his commandments. So your faith without works is dead. For we which have believed do enter rest. As he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake of a certain place on the seventh day in this wise, and Yahweh did rest the seventh day from all of his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest, seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, some being a remnant. And they to whom it was first preached entered not, because of unbelief. Again, he limiteth a certain day, saying in David, today, after such a long time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, just like Moses said in the wilderness, if you obey his voice, harden not your hearts. For if Yeshua had given them rest, then would he not have afterwards spoken of another day? For those of you that say he's the master of the Sabbath, not knowing that's talking about the 1,000-year millennial reign, not knowing that he had the key of David. Again, you can't just take something that the Messiah says. It doesn't say he's God of the Sabbath. Lord is not God, okay? That Lord is a title, just like God is a title. Lord, Abraham's wife Sarah calls him Lord in the scripture. Is he God? Satan is called the God of this world. Is he God by that logic? Of course not. So we need to understand why they removed the names, and we need to understand what's being said here. It says in verse 8, for if Yeshua had given them rest, meaning another day, then would he not have afterwards spoken of another day? There remaineth therefore a rest of the people of Yahweh. For he that entereth into his rest, he also has ceased from his own works, as Yahweh did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into his rest, lest any man should fall after the same example of unbelief. Now, this should be very clear. Do you understand at this point that obedience and walking in his laws, statutes, commandments, and ordinances is a contract to the world that lets the world know this people that I'm seeing that keep the commandments, that eat clean, that keep the Sabbath day holy and do not pollute it, and break bread with one another, these are the people that are separated from the rest of the world forever, because it's a perpetual, never-ending covenant. Yet the church says the laws are done away with. We don't have to keep them. But they pass around a collection plate and ask you for tithe money. Hypocrites. They tell you the Sabbath is every day because of the Catholic Church changing it from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, and now it's Sunday. They'll tell you that, oh, well, that's the day the Messiah was resurrected. Wrong. 3 days and 3 nights, just like Jonah was in the heart of the fish.